I'm not like a lot of these other tech YouTubers. I don't have the influence, sponsorships, or the budget to obtain high-end technology on a whim. That's why when I say this laptop was a purchase I've yet to regret, it's an opinion coming from a fellow consumer. Granted, this also means that I have a lot less personal experience with many gaming laptops, but before making this purchase I did plenty of research and comparisons to find the best mixture of price, performance, and practicality. So in today's video, we'll be taking a detailed look into every aspect of this computer and prove why it's one of the best 15-inch laptops on the market. We'll start with the largest factor in most people's computer purchasing decision, the price. I bought this one online from Best Buy after demoing it at one of the local stores, with the total price coming to just over $2,000 after tax, so not exactly a budget system. I decided to splurge on this occasion since I wanted something small with a lot of power for college, meaning that the size and weight played a large role in this purchase. Physically, the laptop is about 14 by 9.7 inches and less than an inch thick, all weighing in at just under 5 pounds. This makes it light enough to chuck into a backpack and run with, and is easy to fit on the small desks in lecture halls. It also has a low-key feeling to it, with the only blatant gamer-esque feature being the RGB keyboard. But I like that. I wanted something that looked mostly normal but packed plenty of power, and this laptop hit the nail on the head. But by far, my favorite part of this computer is the screen. This model ships with a 15.6-inch 1440p IPS display with a maximum refresh rate of 165 Hz. This is one of the most beautiful screens I've seen today, perfectly complemented by its 6.2mm wide bezels. The only downside to this one is that the hinges are a bit too wobbly for my taste. I wouldn't normally be so nitpicky, however, considering that this computer costs more than the vehicle I drive, I would have expected something a bit sturdier. But this isn't so bad when you realize that ASUS allocated most of the budget to what matters most, the hardware. In this 15-inch laptop lies a 5th generation Ryzen 9 processor, the 5900HS, an absolute beast of a chip. Based on the Zen 3 architecture and 7nm process, the 5900HS has 16 threads and 8 cores running at a base clock with 3 GHz that can do an all-core boost clock up to 4.6 GHz while under load. It also has Vega 8 integrated graphics, but if you have a laptop with this powerful of a CPU, it likely comes with an equally powerful dedicated graphics solution. Speaking of which, this G15 has an RTX 3070, although it does have the option to ship with a 3060 or 3080. Unfortunately, they're all the Max-Q variants, meaning that they run at a lower wattage than the chip is capable of, resulting in less performance than possible. This one in particular runs at 80 watts, one of the lowest on the market, but surprisingly, it isn't always the bottleneck of the system. From the testing I've done with real-life applications over the last few months, I find myself maxing out the memory before the CPU or GPU, most of the time. The G15 comes with two 8GB sticks of DDR4 RAM clocked at 3200 MHz, one of them soldered directly to the motherboard while the other is fully removable. This leaves a bit of room for future upgrades, and the G15 can support up to 40 GB of memory, which I do plan to upgrade. Most people watching this will get along just fine with 16 gigs, but I typically end up needing more either for video editing or playing this brain damage excuse of a game. Anyway, the last aspect of the hardware that I haven't covered is the storage. This one came with a single 1TB NVMe SSD, which was honestly much faster than I expected it to be. Storage is something manufacturers often skimp out on to save on cost, but ASUS decided not to. The drive in this laptop is the Hitachi, that. They don't specify which one you'll get on their website, but this one doesn't disappoint. Despite its unique name, it performs about as well as more well-known drives. But if this 1TB drive isn't enough for you, which isn't so uncommon nowadays, the laptop has easy access to a second M2 slot allowing for even more upgradability. The I/O is about what you expect for a laptop of this stature. It has two USB 3.1 ports, two USB-C ports, one HDMI slot, two display ports, a 3.5mm headphone/microphone jack, and a microSD reader. This is enough for most people, but I had to buy a 7-slot USB hub just to use all of my peripherals. There's also a 5x3.5-inch trackpad that's, in my opinion, the perfect size, with tactile clicks and a smooth feeling to it. What doesn't work so well is the fingerprint scanner. In theory, it's a nice feature, but in practice, it doesn't hold up so well. For me, it only works about 25% of the time, an issue that still wasn't resolved after setting it up again. Unfortunately, the speakers perform about as well as the scanner. They aren't horrible, but the overall sound isn't great, and the bass is virtually non-existent. But this is about normal for most compact, and especially gaming, laptops. So, that's all that's crammed into this 15-inch laptop, a lot of high-quality, high-performance components. Obviously, this requires an equally competent cooling solution, and boy did ASUS provide. The cooling system in this laptop is excellent, with 6 heat pipes that collectively cool the CPU, GPU, VRM, and VRAM. That's pretty impressive when you consider the overall weight. It also has thermal grizzly liquid metal compound on the CPU, keeping all 8 of its cores nice and cool. But just how cool does it keep them? I decided to run a variety of benchmarks on the laptop with both real-world and synthetic testing. I used the Turbo preset in Armory Crate, a pre-installed program that allows you to tweak the performance of your laptop, among other things. The first test I ran was on Cinebench R20, where the highest recorded CPU temperature was 83 degrees Celsius, yielding a score of 5081, about what I expected. I then ran a 3D Mark Firestrike test, which saw the 3070 peak at 75 degrees Celsius on the core and 83 degrees Celsius on the hotspot. And, once again, the performance was completely reasonable. But with high temperatures comes high performance fans, which do run noticeably loud. Here's a short example of the noise level while it underwent testing. Not really an issue if you're using earbuds or headphones, but if you're not wearing any, you will notice the fans ramp up. So, the aesthetics are good, the hardware is powerful, and the temps are low. But, can it run Crysis Remastered? Well, yeah, it can, pretty easily as well. With the highest settings and a resolution of 1440p, the average frame rate was a solid 76 FPS. But what about Cyberpunk 2077? Surely that'll bring this laptop to its knees. After a bit of messing around, I ended up setting everything to high with medium ray tracing and DLSS set to balanced. This is probably the configuration I would actually play the game with, since the average frame rate was a solid 45 FPS. Not quite the standard 60, but personally, I'm fine with a few less frames when a game looks this good. But those tests were really just to showcase the computer's maximum performance. I also played 3 other games and they ran very well. With the highest settings in 1440p, Valorant, Apex Legends, and Splitgate all got average frame rates above 100 FPS. Valorant's average frame rate was 117, Apex Legends was 106, and Splitgate's was an outstanding 165. But that was the maximum refresh rate in the game setting, so for Splitgate it was likely capped. Point is, the performance will be flawless in most competitive first-person shooters, so you're not going to be able to blame your death on lag. The last game I tested also came out the most recently, Far Cry 6. Considering how good this game looks, it ran very well. With Fidelity FX set to ultra quality, adaptive quality set to 60 FPS, and a mixture of ultra and high settings, the average frame rate was 59 FPS after a few minutes of testing. So, that's how well the G15 will perform. Pretty good. But there still remains the question, is this laptop practical? I'd say so. Yes it is, for a few different reasons. The most important one to me was its lightweight design and that it was easy to take anywhere. Even with the power brick, the whole setup doesn't weigh that much, and its small dimensions means that it doesn't take up too much space. But even if you're going to be doing some high performance tasks, you don't necessarily need the charger since the battery life in this laptop is plentiful. From this online benchmark, the battery should last just shy of 9 hours, and from my real world experience, this feels accurate. But not everything is perfect about this laptop. For example, you might have noticed a distinct lack of webcam above the screen. Not including one allows for a lower overall price, but it's a nice feature to have. It's not really a make or break deal, but it's something to keep in mind. You should also keep in mind that the 3070 in this laptop will be outpaced by many other laptop 3070s due to its Max-Q design. I know that I mentioned this before, but something about not using the hardware to its fullest potential still bugs me. I've been reading online about flashing the V-BIOS with a higher wattage version from a different laptop, but I've yet to do it. Maybe I'll make a video on it. Point is it worth it? Well, that's relative to your personal spending habits, but in terms of computing hardware, this feels pretty future-proof, at least for the next couple of years. I mean, nothing truly is, but it feels more future-proof than previous generations due to the leap in performance from the 2000 to 3000 series graphics cards, the very capable Ryzen 9 processor, and the leftover headroom for upgradability. Overall, I really like this laptop. I might be a bit biased since it's the only gaming laptop I've ever had, but if I am, it's for a good reason. It's an impressive computer. But that's what I think. What about you? Leave a comment below letting me know what you think about the G15, or don't. And that's about it. Thanks for watching and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below and I'll be sure to respond to it. While you're at it, consider subscribing or leaving a like because it helps me out and I'm trying to get monetized. There's also an official JNet Discord server where you can chat with me and others about a variety of topics. Link in description. But that's it. Have a great day. Bye. By the way, this wasn't sponsored. I'm not sure. I had realized, like, while I was editing this, I didn't mention that. But ASUS, if you want to sponsor me, go for it, because love your products and I need money.